I've been an elder now for about 8 years. I'm a member of the choir and I'm also a Sunday school teacher.
I would be surprised at anyone who didn't have some reservations about taking on a role of that nature. I'm sure I did.
I wasn't expecting it, I was really surprised, but I felt honoured to be asked, and after a great deal of thought I decided to accept.
They said they wanted a quiet word, and they said I had been nominated to be an elder, and how did I feel? Gobsmacked, I think is the best way to describe it. Absolutely shell-shocked.
Why?
Very young, not knowing much about the position. The elders in the church, I would say, are maybe 35 upwards, my mum and dad included in that. And it's something that you don't visualise yourself doing. It's something that had never even entered my head.
Are you good enough? And why me? And I was told that you're doing that job anyway. Why not you?
Yeah, I suppose if it's a challenge, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
I always felt that one day it would be the next logical step to be an elder, although I hadn't given it serious thought up until that point.
The effectiveness of our church life depends on all types of people fulfilling different roles. We all work in partnership alongside the minister. The church provides opportunity for prayer and worship, care, support and Christian nurture, all of which needs thoughtful administration. This work requires gifts we all have in some form or another. If you have been approached to consider eldership, it is because others have recognised gifts in you. But what exactly is the elder's role?
What we're talking about here is teamwork. The church and the congregation, as I suppose you would describe them, the people of God, trying to give folk a glimpse of the kingdom, need to do that in an organised fashion, as opposed to just a bunch of individuals doing their own thing. And elders are one of the ways in which the team that we build has a focus. It's not that they do it all either, but they are enablers and they are linchpins and they are people who take on a certain level of responsibility to enable other people to participate in activities.
Well, the elder fits into the church in many different ways and at many different levels. They are, of course, part of the leadership of the church. We meet together as a Kirk session to determine what is the vision for the church and how that vision is best worked, how we could implement plans and procedures and processes to make the church much more effective in sharing God's good news in this place and how to care and help people in their situation. So at that level, the elder is very much in the planning process. But of course, they're also working on the ground in organisations, in groups, and on various committees, trying day to day to find how things best work. And well, of course, we can't have an elder not coming to worship. They're there sitting beside people and sharing with them, on a very ordinary, everyday level.
It's also important that we get away from the idea that the minister's the only holy one, but that the whole congregation are ministers.
Qualities we're looking for in an elder: somebody who's caring, somebody who's concerned about people and about their church, somebody who's willing to take part and get involved in the whole spectrum of church affairs and church life, somebody who wants to share their faith with others in very ordinary and straightforward ways.
How much do you think the role has changed over the years?
Basically, it hasn't. I mean, there was much more formality in the early days, but the duties are very similar. The duties of keeping in touch with your own little group, keeping them in touch with the minister, which I think are the basic duties of the elder.
Each of us bring ourselves to the eldership, and it's not, an elder is a particular thing, that an elder is each individual person with their own personality and their own characteristic and their own talents and abilities, which are all given by God.
Why does the system operate this way? And where does the elder fit into the bigger picture of the church?
I think you have to understand it against the background of the courts of the church, the General Assembly, the Presbytery and the Kirk Session. And really the elder's main role in some ways is to look after the affairs of local congregations within the context of the kirk session or the local church council, call it what you will, but that's their main role. However, every kirk session appoints an elder to the presbytery, and the presbytery then appoints elders on a rotational basis to the General Assembly. So they are key people. The women and men who are elders in our church are key people in terms of the working of the Presbyterian Church. Right from the beginning, in many ways, you could say there have been elders. In the Old Testament, they're talked about in all kinds of ways as key people in the community, the nation, or the city. And then in the New Testament, they're referred to time and time again in the Gospels as religious leaders, in Acts as church leaders, and would you believe it, in Revelation as members of the courts of heaven. You can hardly get a higher pedigree than that. However, as far as the Church of Scotland is concerned, really we look to the man standing behind me, John Knox, who in the Reformation had a new vision of the ministry of all God's people. We've often referred to it as the priesthood of all believers. And so we need, within that context, women and men serving the church in just about every area.
You need vision, you need to be open to what is out there and what can be done in the community, in the parish.
I don't think an elder should ever think of himself as being one person alone tackling a problem. There's lots of support always available. The other elders are always willing to give their guidance, and the minister, the succession of ministers that I have worked under, have all of them been wonderfully supportive.
I think the role of elder is by and large the same in each parish, in that it's a leadership position and it's to do with the running of the church and the caring of individuals. Although the role might well be the same in many ways, I think the functions differ. It may well be in some places that elders are asked to teach and preach. It may be that they're asked to take home groups or lead an organisation. It may well be that they're asked to go and look after a certain group of housebound, say, individuals, or put together a youth policy for the church. But that would be determined by the gifts and abilities of each elder.
Rachel Dobie ministers to 4 linked rural charges in Upper Tweedale in the Scottish borders. Here, some of the elders take an active part in worship, as well as their other leadership and pastoral roles.
I take services. We have the responsibility for taking those perhaps 3 or 4 times a year, depending on the extent to which we can organise pulpit supply, which is when the pulpit is filled by other ministers. And so we take those services to the best of our ability, and that's a fairly daunting thing to have to do too. But I think that's something that does come over some years of practice. We've become more accustomed to it. And we do share our problems, obviously, with the minister, who's wholly in control of what we do. And I like to think that also is a way of supporting her in the same way that she supports us.
I see the role of eldership as vital in an operation like this. In a sense, each parish has a part-time minister. I sometimes won't be in 2 or 3 of the parishes for several days of a week. They'll hardly see me at all. And so it's important that the elders have a reasonably high profile and can keep me informed of what's happening, and I keep them abreast too of what's going on.
I have a feeling of my faith growing stronger because of what I do. I think prior to becoming an elder, there was a feeling that church was possibly not something you had to go and attend every certain Sunday. The fact of having to be there, the fact of having to give a lead, has made me examine my own faith in a much more critical way.
I see the elder's role as walking beside members, understanding where they are, what their problems are, and sometimes what their gifts and their skills are, so that we can ensure that they're used. Because I think one of the reasons that people sometimes fall away from the church is that they don't believe that anybody will miss them if they're not there. And so it's quite important that members know that they are valued and that the elders are with them.
Without help, the minister would not be able to keep all the churches open in Upper Tweedale. So it means that every 3 months you're taking 2 services in one or other of the churches, of the 4 churches.
How easily does that come to you?
It doesn't come easily. I think we're all amazed at how a minister manages to do it every Sunday.
They are a very dedicated crew and are a pleasure to work with. There are some who will take on more work and volunteer for more things than they rightfully ought to. And so sometimes it's part of the job to make sure that somebody isn't overloaded, because that can easily happen.
By contrast, Wrestlerigg, an urban priority area in the city of Edinburgh, is where Ewan Aitken ministers.
It's an urban priority area, but interestingly, that's mostly because it's the largest concentration of elderly in Lothian. So people are living on £61 a week, and that's why there's a lot of poverty, but it's a different type of poverty. There's a high, but not incredibly high, level of unemployment, but it's higher than the national average. 80% of the membership either live in this community or within half a mile of it. So when we talk about the community and the church, we're actually talking about the same thing. However, the church can articulate itself in 2 different ways, and one is a very religious, organised religion type way, which is the Sunday morning experience and other similar things, and then in service to the people around them. But it's not people coming into a community as outsiders and serving, it's neighbours serving neighbours. So we do a whole bunch of different things. The Ripple Project is the way we do that, and we have 9 programmes under that banner, but we also have other things like Scouts and BBs and guides and so on. But in all cases, it's the people here of this community, because of their own faith, serving and working beside and helping out with their own neighbours. And I think that's important to see as a concept. It's not being parachuted in, but it's people here making this a better quality of common life because of their faith of the community that they're already part of.
I don't think I could do the job as an elder if I didn't have my faith. I think you're being untrue to yourself if you do it for the wrong reasons and not for that reason. Well, we try and offer training. We try and offer days away. We constantly talk about the things we do and we're going to do. But I think one of the major ways in which we enable them to do the job well is to participate. It's not for me to tell them what to do, but as a session, we plan what we're going to do, we agree it, we work it through, we chew at the problems, we have a sense of direction. So, for example, we have a 5-year plan, and that's divided up. That's got 3 main goals, and then those goals are articulated in the targets for each of the 9 committees that we have. So the Kirk session has started from saying what's our overall vision, and then how we're going to make that vision real, and who's going to do these pieces of work. So the job's divided up, and those folk that are doing one piece know they're doing that piece, and they don't have to be involved in other bits because they know that other elders are doing those other bits, and then the whole jigsaw fits together. So part of it's not just the training that you do, but the structures that you create to enable people to do their piece of the job well and see their targets as part of a bigger picture, but they're achievable goals for them.
Many people, and it's only natural, may feel anxious about the thought of becoming an elder, and may indeed ask, why me?
I think the first main anxiety I had was, how will I help people when they have a bereavement? That was probably the first major anxiety that I had. I was also a bit concerned that I might get asked a lot of difficult questions that I wouldn't know the answers to. And I also wondered, as I think a lot of people must wonder, why me, and am I good enough?
I think it's a very natural response to taking on the challenge of the eldership. We have resources, though, to help people who have this kind of anxiety, from books to presbytery courses to videos, which are all designed to help people to fulfil the challenge of eldership.
I have a very strong faith, and I have no qualms that God will lift me up and help me to do anything that I'm challenged to do. But I say my main concern is, do I have enough experience of life to help people in real need?
We have a network of elder trainers throughout Scotland based in presbyteries who are willing to come to churches or to a group of local churches or to a presbytery to run courses in which elders can share their experience and learn from one another.
I think it's just the visitations that worried me. I didn't know how often you had to do it, and what was involved in that, and how much time it was going to take up then with my other involvements in the church.
The challenge for elders is to be constantly saying, where are we going, and what have we done? To review, to plan, to work and to review. To say, not how do we survive, but how do we grow and how do we develop, both themselves individually and as the whole community. Not to get obsessed by particular things or always doing things we've always done them, but being willing to change and develop and learn and make mistakes and move on. That's another concern I have, because obviously not being in the session, I don't know what goes on in Kirk session. I don't know what session business is. And it's always this, you know, oh, the Kirk session says this. And my first Kirk session meeting, I think, is going to be a real eye-opener. But never be scared to say, I don't know. Never be scared to say, I need some help. Don't assume that it's a position of glory, but that it's a task of responsibility and it's a call to serve God in a new and an adventurous and exciting way.
I would want to say to every person who is being invited by the Kirk session or by the congregation through the Kirk session to become an elder of the church, this could be one of the most fulfilling, thrilling and spiritual experiences of their whole life.
I think if people can just be themselves, honestly. I think anyone who would be asked on an eldership course, I don't think they're asked for nothing. I think they must have been sort of carefully looked at through their church anyway before they're even invited to this point. And I think if people are open, honest and just be themselves, then that's all I can say.
How long have you been an elder, and has it been a challenging role?
Oh, it has been, but it's been enjoyable too. Now, how long? I reckon it's 44 years, which is quite a time.
When you're 21, life seems like an awful, awful long time. You don't know what's ahead of you, marriage, children, jobs, anything like that. But once it's, you know, explained to you that you can move if you need to and things like that, then it's very exciting, very interesting, very exciting. And for life, well, yeah, I'm prepared to take on that commitment, so yeah.
Well, it's a commitment, but, you know, life's a commitment. And what is life if you don't have a commitment?
It's right to feel anxious and it's right to feel a bit nervous if you've been asked to be an elder. Sit down, think about it, think for a long, long time. When I was about 2 weeks, have a talk with your minister, have a talk with your parents. And at the end of the day, yeah, it is your decision. But I took the decision and I'm really pleased that I did, because I have gained so much out of it. Very much a life learning experience.
Ask, ask, ask. I would say pray about it. Go and see the minister. Go and see an elder that one respects. Ask questions, read books about it.
The church of today and tomorrow is a church in transition. Society is in the midst of change. The role of elders must be dynamic, steering a wise course through uncharted waters. The need is not only for careful administration, but for adventurous, caring and courageous leadership.
Do you believe the fundamental doctrines of the Christian faith? Do you seek the unity and peace of this church? Do you promise to uphold its doctrine, worship, government and discipline, and to take part, your due part, in the administration of its affairs? The Lord bless you and enable you faithfully to keep this promise.